What is up, everybody? My name is Chase Mansmann, and I have been a personal trainer for 11 going on 12 years. Yes, I am getting old. All right, so within that time, I have trained so many people: old, young, skinny, fat, rich, poor, celebrities, teachers, professional poker players, pretty much everyone and anyone of all types of shape, sizes, goals, etc., etc., etc. So my goal with this channel here is to help kind of simplify fitness and clear some things up and add in the appropriate kind of context and nuance so you can make these decisions for yourself. And I try to do that in the most transparent and honest way possible and not try to just sell you bullshit to make money, at least not right now, okay? Maybe at some point, because I do not have a Lambo and I would like one. All right, all jokes aside, today we're going over the top 3 ways to prevent injuries. Now, this is a bit of a clickbait because, first off, you can't fully prevent injuries, unfortunately. I see a lot of these injury prevention things where they're saying, oh, how to bulletproof your shoulders, your knees, your elbows, blah, 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 blah. You cannot fully bulletproof anything. Sometimes shit just happens, but from being a personal trainer for 11 or 12 years, I have learned some things, so I want to share top 3 things that you can do to help prevent injuries as much as we potentially can. All right, so let's go to number 1, and this is always going to be number 1 in my opinion, and that is going to be load management. Okay, load management, I also like to call it kind of load accounting, or it could even be just general work accounting. All right, so what does that mean? That means how much load or work are we doing versus how much recovery that we are doing, okay? This is always going to be the biggest one. And once you start shedding some light on this and actually looking at, again, those 2 different variables, how much load, how much work we're doing versus how much recovery, it usually answers the question for you, I would say 9 times out of 10. So let me share a story here. So one of my clients right now, he has battled with some feet stuff in the past. Feet stuff meaning it's just some feet injury. We worked on it a lot last year and it got a lot better. And then he had a pretty big flare up a couple weeks ago. All right. So, he came in a little bit frustrated and it's like, all right, did this. And then we started kind of breaking down and kind of quantifying how much activity he was doing. So he went from essentially winter long, probably averaging around 4,000 steps a day. Okay. And then just suddenly went up to 15,000 steps a day. Then he played tennis for like 2.5, 3 hours one day. And then he had a big flare up. All right. So he went from, again, 4,000 steps or whatever it was to 15,000 steps. So long story short, he increased his movement, his activity, his feet striking by like 500% in the matter of a couple days. All right. So I don't think there's many things in life that you can increase by 300-400%, whether that's how much you work, how little you sleep, whatever stress on the body is, without kind of fucking yourself up a little bit, all right? So that's kind of what load management is. Generally, if you don't want to injure yourself, we want it relatively gradual, okay? So if you're getting ready for a marathon, you probably wouldn't go, all right, I'm going to go from 1 mile to running 26 miles. You'd probably go 1, maybe 1.5 to 2 to maybe 4 to maybe 5.5. It would be relatively gradual, okay? What we call graded exposure in my field. So that is essentially what kind of load management is looking at, is what were you doing before? What are you currently doing? What is the future? And we want to make sure, again, this progression is relatively consistent and steady in nature, and we're not having these giant spikes, because that's when we can run into problems. And here's also the hard thing is, sometimes we don't run into problems. This is what makes it tricky, and we'll get into tolerance and capacity, is these things change on a daily, on a weekly, on an hourly basis. So sometimes you can do, I jumped my step double, didn't have any issues. Then you can do that again 4 months later and have a lot of issues. Why do these things happen? I don't really know. Again, it's part of that equation of the stimulus versus recovery and things like that. But sometimes things go really to plan, and sometimes you're extremely resilient, even if you were to increase 2x, 3x. Other times you are not. But I think best practice is always just be kind of gradual. So for any of you new to exercise, new to running, new to whatever modality that is, just make it gradual, okay? If you haven't stepped into a gym in a year, 2 years, 3 years, a decade, probably doing a 3-hour leg workout, not the greatest idea unless you want to be really, really sore, really, really beat up and have some really achy joints for quite a long time. And I do see that a lot. People just do way too much, way too soon, okay? So just grade it over time. That is always the biggest one. Load management, graded exposure is your friends. I promise you this. Okay, so that's number one. That was long, I know. The number two is just going to be building overall and specific tolerance and capacity. All right. So if you take any of these systems to help bulletproof these areas, so like knees over toes or any of these stuff, the whole system, again, is just built on gradually building more capacity and tolerance to whatever specific tissue. So for this example, his knees, all right? So he might be doing, and sorry if I lose focus, but he might be starting off with we're going to do a squat to here, okay? So we're going to build tolerance with this much knee flexion, okay? Then we're going to go a little bit further. Then we're going to go a little bit further. Then we're going to go a little bit further and add some load. Then we're going to go a little bit further and add some load and a pause. These are all ways to gradually build up tolerance and capacity, all right? So what I put is a overall and a specific. So overall would be just kind of GPP or general physical preparation work, which is just get stronger, okay? Let's just get stronger, maybe add in some tissue, some muscle mass and things like that. And I think overall, you're probably going to be a sturdier, and have a higher level of tolerance and capacity. And then you can get very, very specific. So for example, if I was working with a marathon athlete or an ultra marathon runner, we would kind of break down of what joints, what tissues need the highest level of tolerance and capacity. So for them, it's probably a lot of lower limb stuff, feet, ankles, knees, hips. So I would probably cater my specific programming to really work on building as much tolerance and capacity to those specific structures and the specific demands that sport gives that athlete is humanly possible. And that is another one, again, it's specific based on your goals and the outcomes that you seek and stuff like that. So if you're an overhead athlete, maybe it would be building and maintaining as much tolerance and capacity to the shoulders as you possibly can in your elbows, all right? So that's going to be number two. Again, building as much broad and specific tolerance and capacity as you can. And then number three, if you really wanted to be the most resilient creature out there, another big one is having as many movement options and strategies as possible. Now, I don't think there's any studies with this one of just like overuse versus having, a lot of different, again, movement options. But from what I've learned from different physical therapies, it's best to have, again, 19 different ways to pick something up is probably going to be the best route when we're looking at this through a longevity perspective as possible. So cool that you can have the most perfect form to pick up a pencil. But I think what would be even better would be I can pick it up laterally and shifting my hips. I can pick it up hinging off of one leg. I can pick it up with really forward knees. I can pick it up with really hips back form. Having more movement options and movement strategies, in my opinion, and again from what I learned, is just going to be generally the best options just in case you are someone that is prone to kind of overuse injuries. So again, having just one strategy to do everything with, probably not going to have the best outcome long term. And again, this is speculative. I hate when people draw these absolutes of, no, you need to be able, I don't really know, but in my opinion, I do think, again, having a lot of options is just going to be better. All right, so that's all I got for you. Number one, again, overall load management, load accounting, okay? Number two, building overall and specific tolerance and capacity. Number three, having as many movement options and strategies as possible. All right, thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe. Leave a comment down if there's any other topics that you want me to go over. And thanks for tuning in.